Hello, my name is Brigit Viksnins, and I work with Alchemical alignment, which is a type of healing work that I have developed. I run a training program with 14 modules at this time, and if you are a practitioner, I would love to invite you to learn more by contacting us at alchemicalalignment.com. What I'm here to talk about today at your GAPS conference is healing for your cardiovascular system, which of course is inextricably intertwined with everything else. You are one being with a brain, a voice, a heart, solar plexus, a belly, reproductive system, pelvis, legs. Your entire body is a sentient, very, very intelligent being. We have not always known this in our lifetimes, in the generation that we are alive in, the ones before us. They treated the body much more like matter and a bit more like carpentry, were the interventions. If something is mechanically sheared out of place, get it back into place. There's a place and time for interventions like that, especially if you've had an impact injury. It's so great to know somebody who can help you come into purely mechanical and physical alignment. However, you are so much more complex than that. I like to think of it as physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, energetic, and relational. All of those are harmonically woven together into who you are. And there's the healthiest expression of your consciousness through your embodiment, through your actions, and through who you are deep inside. That gets interrupted by traumas, and they land somewhere in your body. If you imagine that the energy anatomy of your human physical body is that you have the material form of you, but then you also have a toroidal field, Toroidal, which is a sphere with a central channel that is breathing all the time with you. You have cosmic energies coming down through you. You have earth energies coming up through you, and the harmony of them works through you as a human being. More and more and more people at this time are waking up to the fact that we are way more than matter. You have an electromagnetic fields of your body, and your heart happens to have one as well. And you could imagine that the development that you have done in your life of the field of your heart might affect the size of the energy portion of your heart. Can you imagine those that you have in your highest esteem? What would the field of their resplendent heart look like? And what kind of training would it take for any regular person's heart to begin to resemble that over time? A larger and larger, more stable field where you can hold your center. What does that mean? In an embodied physical way, and hold your core in a caring way, really being who you came to the planet to be, really being who you can still be on this planet. The question is, how do you get there if you're having digestive difficulties? How do you get there if when you begin to move, you're depleted? How do you get there if there are energies inside of you which may even be screaming, you must, and at the same time, I can't? This is what people with chronic digestive issues are usually up against. That on the one hand, we're going to have a nutritional component where really intelligent nutritional education is perfect for you. However, on the other hand, you have nervous system and security system, I like to call it dynamics, going on inside of you that are holding trauma imprints. And as you bring the greatest nutrition into the system, the cellular level danger response that is still held from ancient traumas, they're in there saying, I'm in danger. Why would I take in nourishment? I'm in danger. Let's excrete this. I'm in danger. Let's make this into concrete. Whatever it is that the system will do in order to hunker down or in order to make things move through quickly. There are various different settings of your nervous system that I'm about to draw for you in a couple of different maps so that you have an idea of, wow, how do I begin to map where I am, how I'm feeling on a certain day or over time, and how do I slowly begin to move in the direction of my greatest health, not only with nutritional influences, but also with nervous system re-regulation, trauma resolution, where you work with undigested threat responses that are inside of the body, attachment rehabilitation, because some of the deepest traumas are attachment related, and embodiment of spirit as you move forth into the amazing creature who is like a light being living through your human physical body that we would love to welcome into more and more and more of your life. So another thing before I draw the maps, I would love to imagine with you is that you've got a periphery around you at the edge of this sphere. Maybe even right now you could imagine that you've got a circle of light around you and that it's complete and intact. Can you find it? And if light doesn't work for you, ask, what works well for my system? Because you are an individual and you're going to have individual settings that say, oh, no, to something that other people suggest. And then you just pivot a little bit until something is found that works for you. I call that the asterisk of personalizing what you're hearing until it works for your system, because there's so much intelligence in there. It will reject things that are not quite right for you. And so here we are with the boundary around you. Can you imagine that if at some point there was something traumatic, which simply means you did not have the resources at the time to manage, and it left an imprint of some kind and it has not yet been repaired, there's an imprint of some kind. It will leave a boundary breach of some kind. A really cool thing is that it's possible, especially with the help of another, to begin to heal that so that the difficulties of the world don't quite get in as deep as they might if the boundary breach is still there energetically. Can you imagine that which I'm talking about at the periphery, that there might be more and more and more concentric circles like nesting fields closer into your core with a similar thing? The traumas that have happened at your youngest ages, I tend to think of them as early, intense, or ancestral. The things that you are epigenetically still holding doesn't mean it's not reachable. It just means it's deeper and older. Tend to land at the innermost parts of you. And so some of the interventions and information that are coming to you with regard to the deepest core of you, which has to do with your heart and your stomach, your digestion, your reproduction, your brain function, at the deepest core of you, the earliest parts of your development were involved in the growing of those into what they are today. And so along your whole timeline of your life, if you can imagine imagine going to the earliest parts of the timeline. If there were events that happened earlier on your timeline, like before 9, significant events, before 3 years old, it's even deeper. Before 1 year old, before 3 months old, even deeper. Birth trauma, even deeper down into the core. Gestational, conception, ancestral or past life, other things. The earlier they are along your timeline, the deeper they affect your core. And there's something called a cellular level danger response, where your cells get that setting of we're in danger, and we will stay that way until we know that we are out of danger. Noticing that if people talk to you without pausing, you don't have a chance to breathe. I'm just noticing myself and having a chance to pause, especially as we reach a bit more intimate information. That's when we don't want to keep going at a really fast pace. Really fabulous idea to slow down and bring a little more care into the subject, because at those earliest parts of your timeline, you are not a self-regulating creature. You are a co-regulating creature. And so as we start to talk about your heart and your belly, deep brain function, reproductive system function, deep along the core of you, that's where your body starts to listen to the other body. It's not a mental alone transmission. It's an embodied experience of how's that other person treating me? How do they treat themselves? Are they available for down regulating together if we're activated, which means stirred up in some way toward sympathetic states of too much happening here? Can we down regulate together, dropping in to a body? If you imagine that you have a light being that might jump up and out because of danger, would it also have the ability to drop back down and in because of safety? It's something that those with early trauma get to train themselves to do over and over and over again, dropping in, even down into legs and feet, dropping down and in. One thing that happens, however, with chronic difficulties and those double binds that I was just talking about of I must do something and I can't do it, as you become a master of the double bind, the one side that I just mentioned is the activated side. I'm spinning, I have a lot going on. The other side of the equation is I can't do anything. I'm depleted, I'm drawn down. This is the freeze realm that you may have heard people talk about lately. It ends up being a little complex to work with freeze in the body, because in my experience of over 25 years of working with this, is that slowing down and co-regulating, re-regulating deep security system parts like kidneys, like brainstem, like womb area. These slow down a system, but they also thaw the freeze inside. And it takes a delicate balance of being able to work with intense energies and energies of being lost or missing or fake or unavailable. And so I tend to think that people with chronic digestive or cardiovascular, brain, reproductive, they over time get to become masters of double binds. I'll draw that for you on a map just now, so that those of you, especially with an ability to take things in visually, this could help you. I'll still be speaking for the auditory ones. and sensing for the kinesthetic ones of you. And so what do we have here? We have my favorite map that I created. And I tend to ask people, hey, please tell me about the things that feel like a resource to you or bring you relief. And we begin to fill up the middle of the map with things that are slow, medium, and fast. I'm not going to be able to take all of that time with you just right now, so I'll just write those words. We have slow resources, medium resources, fast resources, things that you consider the most healthy. Medium might be lunch with a friend. Slow might be your favorite guided meditations that bring relief and ease. Or habits that you have with instruments. Maybe you play a gentle meditative music. Maybe you do handwork. Things that get you into a Zen state, bring you into that rest and digest place that I'm sure you've heard of. Also called regulated parasympathetic state, where your digestion heals itself because of your state, not because of something you're thinking or eating at that time. Even though the nutrition is playing its role, your state cultivation is incredibly important. And the fast health. What do you like to do that's a little bit of a risky into elevated heart rate, but it's kind of fun? Do you each person's going to have their own example. Anything from, I love walking around the block and seeing what flowers are in bloom or what early spring buds are starting to come up. Somebody else is going to be either in the, what's my example for this that feels good? I sometimes mention skiing, and however, if we're speaking with people with chronic issues, that feels not like the right thing to say right now. Your fast health, maybe what I like to do is Aikido training, which is where we work with swords and staffs to train various movements, sometimes in slow motion, which is so wonderful, and other times with more intensity. And the ability, what I like to call the sustainable formula for health, is a small risk into the fast and a small risk into the slow, stabilizing in the middle over and over and over again. What happens when danger is involved in this map? I'll number these now just so that we have clarity. When danger comes in, that's when we get to the fight or flight energies, or to the freeze energies. Now, in the first moment when you're needing to fight someone off, it's completely healthy. And so we'll call that the acute phase of fight or flight or freeze. And then we've got, so that was A, and then B is when things get stuck and you have an imprint in the system of I'm still in danger. And that's the one that I was mentioning. If it happens so young, it's deep in the core and it takes special skills to re-regulate, to reach those, but it's not impossible. From a modality called somatic experiencing, you may have heard about global high intensity activation, GHIA, where there are people whose systems are revving high and high and high, which basically is telling us you're not making it down to the rest and digest, which is where your system deeply relaxes and creates repair for you. And so if you have any portals into rest and digest, I highly recommend that you use them to get into that state, because that is where there's so much help for you. It's miraculous. I'd like to make a short aside to say that the entire map used to be rest and digest and fight and flight. It's possible that you learned in school that when we go up, we go to fight and flight, and when we go down, we go to rest and digest. they were missing all of these other numbered parts of the map. It was a limited, there's the word, it was a limited map to just have up into dysregulation and down into regulation. We didn't have, like, how beautiful is this? Say, this is regulated fast, this is regulated medium, this is regulated slow. The map is so much bigger. And notice the map did not used to include freeze either, and the many depths of freeze. When I teach, I tend to draw plus symbols on the way up really high into fight and flight, and minus symbols. There are different states going down into the freeze, and they're all recognizable, and you can work with each of the different kinds, whether it's got activation underneath it, or you feel fake, or you feel just totally missing and on the way to extinction. The one, however, that has the double binds in it is the one that I've been trying to get to. So you needed all of this foundation to be able to make it to this next piece of information. In somatic experiencing, it's called syndromal. And I draw it as a 7 at the top and at the bottom of this map because it has elements of the I can't, or this was I must, and that I can't. And so you've got revving need to change something, and you've got deep inability and overwhelm to change that. And so the 7 ends up being at the top and the bottom of the entire map. There are double binds that are full of energy, and then there are ones that land down like as if you're dropping to the bottom of the lake. And these would be, or the frozen area, these would be deeper into freeze, into the great powerlessness of, I can't get out of here, and maybe people like me could never get out of here. And there's a lot of belief and worldview and perception, also called neuroception, because it's perception of danger in your reality that goes along with any of the stuck threat responses. And so where's the hope? Is a great question. Small doable pieces of exactly the tools that you already have, moving slowly toward greater and greater regulation. It is, and that is the answer that nobody wants to hear, is small doable pieces, because chronic issues that have been there for a very long time require, I like to call them chronic solutions, in order to get out of what has been there for some people for decades, maybe since birth, maybe since before birth. You could say, yeah, but I only got symptomatic at 23, 27, 35. That's how long sometimes it takes the body to materialize into a symptom, that which is underlying energetically. Does that make sense to you? That it can be latent because there's enough youth flowing through there until it becomes active, because of the body materializing more, slowing down in terms of youth, and being overwhelmed by the traumatic imprint that is in there and the layers of stressors that are compounding that. When you're watching yourself, here's another map for you. We'll call this one map of 7 realms. And when you are watching yourself go through your day, here's another piece of great information for you to be able to assist your deepest insides to begin to receive the care that they need from this mind mapping and the tools that come with it. Activation happens, which is this line going up. You'll continue to feel activation. Then, somehow, each person learns how to soothe and distract and stabilize. You get to ask yourself, what resources do I have internally and externally that would help me to soothe and distract? Oh, right, my meditation that I do every day that soothes me so much. daily walk. Great. So glad I can do that. Oh, my delicious latest thing that I was allowed to add to my diet this week. Oh, isn't that wonderful with the wise people working with me? And then over time, you may find that different things begin to help you, that you are able to enhance your list with more and more and more things that you add to that. And then more often you visit that number 2 slow, that rest and digest place as you soothe and distract yourself away from activation. The other thing that happens, unfortunately, with a lot of people with chronic issues is that instead of being able to soothe and distract, they actually go into looping, which is often very common with people who have early trauma, early injuries, things that you may not even recognize because they're not commonly thought of as, wow, that could be part of a cause of why I would feel this way. I'm thinking of somebody with a forceps injury from birth who has the imprint of, I can't move, I can't do it. And the nerves from the area, of course, go all the way down through your core and would affect your entire core from that age onward. And even if you had stellar parenting, somebody's talking about attachment injuries. What? There's an interpersonal component of that forceps injury. It affects the interpersonal connections between the little one and the people who come. And sometimes the parents are saying, I've been amazing, and there's something blocking me from connecting with that one. If there's an early enough attachment injury, it feels like a film of some kind, even glass, over the person's being, and it feels like people can't quite reach you. It's really interesting to begin to ponder, how could I be reached ever? This is what I call a secure attachment as a spiritual path. How could I begin to be reached by spirit, by nature, by any human, by one human, by kind kittens that's re-regulating to watch beautiful small animals who are being cute and adorable. It helps to soothe the systems that are dysregulated inside. How could I possibly be reached? And you could have a voice inside saying, I don't want to be reached. I've only been injured. Unfortunately, that's part of the pattern that goes together with heart, digestive, deep core issues, is that there's often an interpersonal component of some kind of a boundary violation or early trauma. And so please understand that slow repair is invaluable for the deeper parts of your system. And so that leads us to, what does completion look like? Oh, I wanted to make sure to add a double bind deep in the middle of that looping, because we keep talking about them. The fact that you can have equal and opposing energies, that you get some activation, you move up into the great difficulty, and then you say, I have to get out of here. Yeah, but I don't know how to get out of here. I have to get out of here. I don't know. And so that's the mastery of double binds that we're looking for over time. How do I begin to build capacity to work with each side of that? Completion, integration, extinction. This map is adapted from somatic experiencing. I changed it. I have never seen them use looping or double bind, so I'm just letting you know what I've added to it. I call it the map of 3 directions. And so you could say, what does that mean? Completion, integration, extinction, that my patterns that activate me my imprints that are in there could move toward wholeness, healing, health. It's not a good or bad thing, like I'm holding something bad inside of me, by the way. There is an unmet need of some kind, and there's an unfinished threat response of some kind deep inside that has not been met yet, likely was not recognized at that time. It doesn't mean that it's too late to recognize it now and to be able to work with the deep inside of you. This is part of what biodynamic craniosacral therapy can reach if they have enough trauma training. This is part of what somatic experiencing can reach if they have enough core process work that the practitioner has done for their own heart, for their own digestive system, especially when the people do the work, they're that much more effective for the clients. And this is what we practice in alchemical alignment. I just wanted to give you a lot of resources so that you know where to look for a practitioner. There's also pre and perinatal therapies. Which you can find by searching for Castellino training online, Mary Jackson and Tara Blasco. And you could also find Kate White, who is a treasure trove of amazing classes and information, pre and perinatal center, I believe. Please search for those people. And the other map that I wanted to draw for you before we finish up, where I like to add in here are slow, medium, and fast health. This is your range of regulation. Whenever you have the slow, medium, and fast health, it's your range of regulation. And this range is a variable range. Sorry, my lines aren't quite as straight as I'd love them to be. You have a variable range of regulation. I would love for every human to know this, that sometimes you're feeling amazing and you're feeling full of yourself and you're thinking, oh my goodness, this is the greatest thing. I'm alive. I have followed my health protocols so well. My stress levels have been getting easier. My stress management programs, my exercise I've been doing, my meditation. And I love people. I am love. When your range of regulation is large, these are the I am statements that we make. I appreciate. I am curious. I play. All of those beautiful states. However, you add some stressors. You have undigested early traumas. Things begin to get more difficult. I don't like my life. I have long-term ongoing stress, some kind of toxic stressors. I'm working so hard. I'm following my protocols. I tried something new. It just didn't work. It felt like another stressor. Notice this is your variable range of regulation. It responds to the conditions around you. It is your state. It is not your thoughts at the foundation of all of this, which is why when you have a chronic issue and people are telling you, oh, it's your belief system, you have to change your belief system, and you're sitting there saying affirmations all day long, they're not reaching your state. That's the very sad thing. We would love to cultivate any affirmation that you say for it to be brought down into the body, into the belly, and include even the earth below. And you're grounding into the earth below. The feminine aspects are the ones that are important for rehabilitating. You can think of it as yin rehab for rehabilitating the deep gut and the deep heart. It is not a top-down experience of thought or affirmation trickles down into viscera. Actually, what you have is the yin need for the care, for the grounding, for the soma to receive the care that rises up through the body. Wild animals, if you could imagine them just now, with their magnetic connection with the earth below. And I know this may sound strange, but you've got polyrhythmic tides that flow through your body. You are a tidal being also with a fluid body, not just electromagnetic or physical matter. You've also got polyrhythmic tides that get really slow and slow and slow, moving through you. And part of that is what heals you on a cellular level. Your gut walls heal themselves, your heart and its spiraling of tissues and its spiraling of blood moving through it, and its lemniscate pattern of receiving oxygenated blood and sending out the used blood to the lungs. All of that is part of your deepest health. You know what? I wanted to finish up with a meditation. So let me finish this map and I will move right into that. Your River of Life map, adapted also from somatic experiencing, I added the lines in the middle, is your story over time. And so, what do you have here? You tell me a story, or tell anyone a story about how your day went, or how your week, or your month, or your year went. The amount of time on this map is variable. And you say, yeah, I was having a good time with my friend, and then I went for a workout, and then I went home and I had some dinner, and I slept so well that night, and then I went about my day the next day, and it was kind of ho-hum. Just like a piece of music, your story from a nervous system level can be mapped onto a map like this. There was no danger and no dysregulation involved in that story. And so all of it was within the range of regulation, right? Whether that person is eating 3 foods or eating 30 foods, it doesn't matter. It is about an individual and their own range of regulation. It's so unique to you. It's not about everybody else. It's about you in the range of regulation and how you cultivate it and how you enlarge it, enlarging your capacity for consciousness, for presence, for witnessing yourself, for regulating this heart of yours, for regulating this digestion. It's really unique, all about you. When you're going out of bounds, you will tell stories like, I was going to make it red, but I don't want to bother your sensibilities. I know many of you will be very highly sensitive people. Coming up and out of the range, you'll tell stories like, well, yeah, I was going to have a workout, but then I got on and my heart got dysregulated and it was really difficult. And I was trying to catch my breath, and it seems like everything was going wrong. The body cannot maintain that hyper place for quite so long. Called hyper, also called fight or flight, also called sympathetic dysregulated states, somaticized dysregulation, when life circumstances land in your body. So at some point, you may dip down below into the hypo zone. Up top, you've got fight and or flight, and down at the bottom, you've got the freeze zone. And you might say, yeah, I ended up on the couch for a while, and I wanted to get up, but I could not get up. Notice how the voice changes, how the posture changes, how just everything moves toward depletion. These are our human stories of where we are on the map at any time. At one moment, chronically, over time, these maps all work with different segments of time. And I would love for you to imagine the physiology which would be reflected in any part of the map, is going to be different based on where you are on the map and who you are. And so your heart dysregulation when you're in a fight zone could be a certain pacing. If you've got a freeze pattern, you could have way too slow heart, because that's where your body needed to go in order to manage some ancient trauma. It learned those settings, and we call that an imprint or a default setting, somaticized dysregulation, where your body is telling a story of things that have been. And often it seems to make no sense, because you're like, the circumstances around me logically seem like they're okay. Why do I have a dysregulated body? It's because it's responding to some ancient stressor or combination of stressors, and it's still trying to tell its story, and there's been nobody listening from a body level who could be able to hear it in such a way and scoop up the one that is needing support and hold them in such a way that rest and digest states arrive and repair the area. For some people, it will take discipline and repeated visits to somebody, which is why it's great to get a peer where you could exchange with a peer instead of need to pay professionals forever. Because we don't want this to be expensive. Because, yeah, that's another issue. I'm hoping one day to begin a student clinic so that we can have affordable care with highly trained people. But that's another issue also. All right, I'm going to save this and log off and speak with you again. Here we go. I was hoping to move from theory to maps to meditation time to feel into a bit of the healing that I am speaking about. And so right now, if you wouldn't mind, even for a few minutes, to join me. Sometimes the security system deep inside the body says, help me now, stay out. Another double bind. See me, don't see me. Touch me, here, get the heck away, don't touch me. This is completely normal for deep heart and digestive and endocrine, immune, reproductive, kidney, and brain issues, where there will be a double bind of I need deep care and I can't have it for whatever reason. So where do you go with that? Small, doable pieces and finding safe enough places to bring your attention. Could you notice a piece of wood furniture near you? Something solid, stable, that's neutral, it's mundane. You might think, why would I do that? Well, because it gets us to gently use your attention in a good way and avoid your deep body for a moment, and the body could say, oh, thank goodness, they're not starting with me. And so noticing something stable, mundane, and then from there, if you wouldn't mind with me, expanding out to notice nature as well. I've got trees out the window, so I'm happily tuning into the trees just there. I wonder what you might have also. And can you notice what direction from your body it is? Off to the sides, maybe even behind you, there could be some trees. Out to the other side, maybe. And notice what's different when you tune into trees. They're different than solid physical matter. Inside, wherever you are, if you tune into out there, it's possible that you can begin to feel some life energy in the nature that's around you. No matter what the season is, there will be a breathing of some kind. The living earth below participating. Whether you're the type who can perceive metaphysically the living earth below, or you can just appreciate the beautiful bulbs coming up in springtime, or whatever season it is in your part of the world, noticing the living energies out there. And I imagine that when you tune into the living energies out there, you are not approaching with an agenda to have it change. I would so love for you to cultivate that same attitude of care and witnessing and complete autonomy of the nature out there. You're not going to say, hey, tree, could you straighten up? I hope to bring that attitude of appreciation and slowly notice, can it approach your being? Is there something stable like the tree? Could it be like a bone that you might notice? Really great thing about starting with bone is that it's not your core. It's not your digestive system that might be crying for help, but we're starting with an approach that allows little doable pieces. Noticing a stable bone. Can you find it? The really amazing thing is it's not a textbook. It's alive. It's breathing. You've got cellular movement. You've got so many micro bits of health that are just fine and working smoothly. And then listening. When you cultivate a deep yin listening, starting with a doable area for you to notice. And you have the discipline to stay for a little while with a resource, an area that is not yelling danger, if at all possible. Finding that, it may take a little discipline because our beings get tuned to, where's the problem? And then starts to loop there. So it takes a bit of Jedi mind training to actually do what I'm asking. And then notice what begins to happen from there once you find a place to land a little bit, like a bone that you could appreciate. Cellular level responses begin to happen because the body's so intelligent. It says somebody's listening and possibly somebody cares. Because you're in a field with me right now and I cultivate the caring, there's this sense of we. I am not coming into your space. I am actually practicing right distance, which is another thing that we practice so that we're not invasive, neither too close in or too far away. And being able to begin to co-regulate. It's incredibly tender territory because we tend to be working with incredibly tender ages of you. Whether it was mechanical trauma that happened, environmental, toxic of some kind, or interpersonal trauma that happened. There's a young one who is often at the foundation of chronic core issues. And so if you're on the path to healing this type of thing, the greatest thing is for you to be able to find any practitioners or peers to work with that have a chance of your body allowing them to exist. before I finish up, I would like to make sure to mention Anna Chitty, also with whom I studied a lot and whose ideas were woven into things that I presented here. Colorado School for Energy Studies is where she teaches, just brilliant. And I'm going to make sure to have a link that you can access at my speaker page. Thank you very much for listening. We had today theory, tons of theory. We had map drawing, tons more theory, and then meditation, tons more theory woven into that with the practice. You may know so much, but I promise you it's your state and state regulation that 100 million times gets to be your ticket out of chronic difficulties alongside your best nutritional choices. Speaking of which, in 15 minutes, you will be hearing from Monica Coretta, who I really appreciate. Thank you for coming.